Hello, everybody. Denise, Marjolaine, Molly, Jeff, Gavi, Kirche, and Nienke here on the first meeting of the year, Red Review Program meeting. The program 128 corresponds to lap 1 of year 2025 and also lap 1 of apparatus 507. So I've been just trying to reason a lot this part, right? Because it's not just the beginning of the year, it's the beginning of the apparatus. So these 10 days that we have been through, first 10 days of the whole apparatus, right? And this only happens every 4 years. So it's a pretty big deal because whatever we manage to do or the way we manage to take advantage or capitalize the opportunities of every space, right? That's gonna be very important in the rest of the apparatus. And of course, the next apparatus, right? The next Asume year, because all of these things are intertwined. So let's open the graph because Alejandra shared all of Calendaria, right? So now this year, and I'm not going to be making my own like I did last year. I'm just going to be using the ones Alejandra provided for us, right? Which are these. So as we can see, the square is in blue because it corresponds to year Asume. Apparatus 507, lap 1, right? So today is day 10, which is over here. 10th day of lap 1, solar day 3926 inside 73. We know 73 is always related either to libertad or frames, the frames, right? Or, as Ale has recently said, the freedom to observe the frames or the freedom to vary the perspective of the frames, something like that. So it has to do like with something like that. And if we look at the calculator, we have 7 and we have 3, right? In each corner. So that is like important too. So we have 39 and 26 in the center. Okay. We're gonna have that all along, the 39 and the 26, all the way through the end of the lap. Yeah, and it's gonna end with 7 and 9 containing 39 and 26. Yeah. Okay. Another.
Not in the first part, eh?
Sorry?
It's 26, not in the first part, eh?
Not on the first part. Another important thing is that the way we ended or how we managed to complete the periodic table is that we completed it with 352 spaces, right? So that means that every year we're gonna be reconfiguring everything all over again, every single year. So this is what Ale says. This is what Ale means when she says that there's an update every year, because we're gonna be going over Calendaria all over again, and also the routing of the periodic table all over again. So it matches perfectly, right? So let's just get let's do a little bit of a small review, okay, of the periodic table. So we have 1 to 118, right? Which is the 28th of April. That is day 118 of the year. It ends right there, right? And then we go into 119 over here. We go through these spaces all the way up until 148, and then 149 until 224, right? And then we have 225 until 256. And then we begin over here. Sorry, not 256. Yes, 256. Wait. And then we begin again over here. From here to here, which is lap 19, 20, 21, and 22. Right? So that's where we're going to do all of that all over again. Right now, we are here. Right? which is the line of the noble gases, helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, and radon. So we are on finishing the second line of the periodic table. Tomorrow we're going to begin on the third with sodium. Okay, there's a whole development in the community regarding the person that discovered all the noble gases, or most of them. And then there's also, I don't know if Ale has talked about this in the red programs about the Bose-Einstein experiment. Do you guys remember anything about that? No?
I think
Somehow,
only
yes,
because
yes.
you talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Bose-Einstein experiment has to do with, let me see if I can remember because it was a while ago, but it has to do with sodium, potassium, and rubidium.
Marjolein knows that.
Breaking the atomic information of potassium, something like that. But you know what? No, I don't remember. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that, and then I'll send a small text in the group
Yeah.
to resume that, so I can refresh it also myself, because
It
it
is
is very
Na and rubium, I guess. I think.
Rubium.
Yeah, Na and Rb.
I think she did spoke about it. Sorry, in the I think
She did.
She did.
I think she did spoke about it.
The end of 2023.
Yeah.
She spoke about it.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
About the
Yeah.
experience of and in the beginning
Oh.
of 24 as well.
But it had to do with the breaking, like that experiment had to do with the breaking of the information, okay, of an atomic, of the atomic structure of an element, right? And this is what Alice says, like, this is like what science does, because it doesn't have any space-temporal information or notions, then they just break things to see what happens. And that's what they without even knowing, really, because these are external influences acting on for the breakage of certain structures that are the way they are for a reason, right? And the fact that we don't understand them doesn't give us the right to break them, just to see
And
what
now
happens.
I'm working in the science building at the university. Interesting, eh?
So I'm gonna go look at the notes. So we have Nienke, we have Gabby, we have Marjolaine, and that's it. Okay. So yeah, let's begin. We're gonna be having, let's see, lab 1 and lab 2, and then lab 3 we begin with the cycle again. So we're gonna have 2 meetings before we begin with the cycle, so we'll get our motors heated up. All right, so first note from Nienke, it says arreglario and consuming an improvement. Okay, question. Do you guys want me to open the little story about arreglario and we can get through it in the meeting, and then later with the extra time we have, we can just go look at the questions? It's gonna take us about an hour probably. Or you want to do that later? How do you feel?
I think Agrario feels good.
Yeah? What do you guys
Feels important.
Yeah?
Yeah, because
me,
we
yeah.
are waiting already last time as well, Denise.
Yeah, because
mean-
we said like we were going to talk about it on the first meeting of the year, right? So yeah, I think we should, so that you guys are more familiar with the thing. It's going to be hard to translate exactly because Alejandra uses it's like really in Spanish. It's like very much in Spanish. So a lot of things are going to be hard to translate, but I'm going to try. Let me just look for the thing. 1 second. Oh, here it is. So it is a story that Alejandra wrote for event 57 in Panama. Okay? What year was that? Was it 2019? I think it was 2019. Yeah, 57. Yes, I think it was. Okay, so I'm gonna share it right now. We're gonna make an attempt into a good translation. How do I make it just like that? Okay. Okay, so there we go. So every story begins with once upon a time, right? In Spanish, it translates with había una vez. But Alejandra here adds no había una vez, which is there wasn't a once upon a time. But she has the NO, you see? So instead of saying once upon a time, she begins the story with there wasn't upon a time. No había una vez. That something imaginary would have thought or would have occurred to him what happened to him once. Okay? So now we have this character of something imaginary. So something imaginary never thought of it or never occurred to him what one day happened to him. Something imaginary was very happy in its world. Something always occurred to him. He always thought of something. He always invented something to provide novelties for its world. The imaginary world had something small, something big, something sweet, something salty, something soft, and something rough. The imaginary world had something small, something big, something sweet, something salty, something soft, and something rough. Something good, something bad. It had somethings that included many other somethings, and between them, they made something bigger work. There were unique somethings that were isolated from all the other somethings. And because space and time almost didn't exist of how infinite they were, something new was never a problem. Something imaginary was always willing to invent whatever he perceived that its world needed. Again, something imaginary was always willing to invent whatever he thought that his world needed. So, very aware of his entorno, one day he noticed that something weird was happening inside this imaginary world. Something imaginary observed strange mannerisms in this something that was very unsettled. Okay, there was something weird, and that something weird was very hyperactive. So something imaginary was observing these weird things that something strange was doing. So something imaginary detected this, comes up to something weird and asks it, is something wrong? Something weird answers, yes, of course something's wrong, and he was very angry. Something imaginary wasn't able to comprehend what was going on, so he said to something weird, are you missing something? Just tell me what you're missing and I'll invent it, said something imaginary. That is the problem. Precisely that. That is the problem, said something weird. something imaginary became mute because something like that had never happened to him. And apart from all the other problems that always aroused, this problem presented a new dilemma that something imaginary wasn't able to comprehend. So, scratching his head, he backed away without knowing how to give an answer to something weird. It was the first time that something like this happened to him. So something imaginary decided to observe the situation with more perspective. So he took some steps back away from something weird because he understood that he couldn't communicate very well from the place where he was. He wanted more perspective. So something weird, in the meantime, observed that imaginary world as a world of fools. And he felt very deep inside him that he couldn't accept to just simply be something more inside that world. He just didn't want to be just another something inside that world. There was like he was feeling uneasy, and that uneasiness continued to grow just after he expressed it. After he expressed that there was something wrong, that uneasiness continued to grow. So something weird now also felt kind of unknown. He felt something that was very unknown to him, and that disturbed him even more. So something imaginary saw this conflict grow in his world day after day. So he asked himself very uneasy, what would this anger be? Like, why is something weird so angry? Like, what is it about? Oh, if only I could know. I would invent a solution. He was thinking that, very concerned. But something weird was getting weirder every day. And sometimes it seemed like it was going to explode. But on a very brilliant day, something imaginary found the tip of the iceberg and said very happily or very enthusiastic, I know what's going on. This is a dilemma. Because this time, the solution to this is found on the outside side, on the side of the outside of my imaginary world. So he was like, I know what's going on. This is a dilemma because this time I'm going to find the solution outside of my imaginary world. So something imaginary was very happy, but not because he had found a solution, because he finally figured out what was his problem. So he said, let's get to work. Let's get to work. Now that he knew where the situation was about, now that he knew that what the situation was about, he dedicated himself to invent something new. Something that allowed him to fix, arreglar, remember, arreglar is to fix. Something that allowed him to fix these types of conflicts. Those conflicts whose solution existed outside the frontiers of his imagination. This thought took him or showed him a way into realizing something new. And then he said, but that something should then exist first on the side outside of my imagination, the solution, right? So the something that he's going to invent should exist first on the other side of my imagination. This scared him at first a little bit, and observing that he was getting scared, he invented some theories that kept him calm again. And that was no problem for him at all. Because inside his imaginary world, he had the certainty that he was something absolute. And that all the somethings that existed there would only expand its already proliferous imagination. So it was like that. He invented something that was at the same level as him, something that had the virtue to displace between diverse worlds, fixing these types of problems. So that each world could also expand furthermore than their own imagination. Everything was almost ready for his invention. He just needed one last detail that took him a little more time to realize. How would he present himself and talk to something that came from the other side of his imagination? There had to be some word or some form of communication that would be able to differentiate him from all the other somethings that wait, que él mismo se podía imaginar solito. So he wanted to find or invent a new form of communication that differentiated him from all the other somethings. So, realizing his problem again, something imaginary was getting really excited. Because every time a problem appeared, an electrical situation took over his body that only existed electrically. He knew that he had to assume his own name. And to be able to name another something that would work on the same level as him, he would have to assume his own name. So it was then when something imaginary with lowercase letters, started to call himself for the first time algo, something with the uppercase A, and imaginary with the uppercase I. Okay, so after he assumed his name, that changed. The rest of the letters of his name, he left them small as they were. And he decided also that to be able to communicate on the same level with the rest of all of the other somethings of his own imaginary world, he would always do it with lowercase letters. Every single letter of their name would be lowercase. Okay, ready now. Something imaginary with uppercase letters was ready to give birth to his new invention. So he invented it with this presentation. Hello, really nice to meet you, Mr. Something Arreglario. Welcome to the imaginary world. My name is Something Imaginary. Here in my world, I was waiting for you, very excited. I was very enthusiastic to receive you. And also, I must confess that I am a little excited or aroused. This thing about making a transgression to my own imagination produces in me more electricity than I am accustomed to. Transgression. This transgression to my own imagination produces more electricity than what I am accustomed to. So I am really happy to meet you, my friend. That is exactly what I'm going to be in charge of arreglar or fix the receivers so that they can receive a greater electric charge. something imaginary began to feel something weird, and he thought, wouldn't it be that something weird is contagious? Couldn't it be that something weird is contagious? So
What is contagious, Denise? Denise?
Around in the image.
Denise, what is contagious? Oh, I don't hear you anymore.
Yeah, she must be having the internet troubles.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think so, yes. Ik zocht even contagious op, besmettelijk. Ik weet
Oh,
even niet in het
besmettelijk.
Ja, maar
En-
aanstekelijk, Geertje. Aanstekelijk. De als je moet lachen, dat iedereen gaat lachen.
Ah, zo, ja.
Ja?
How do we call that in English? Aanstekelijk?
Constant, ja. Zoals Denise het zei, contagioso. Maar ik weet niet, contagioso in het
Contagious.
weet ik niet. Maar vanuit
Ja.
het Spaans is het dat je elkaar aansteekt in een emotie. Iedereen moet huilen.
Ja,
Everybody has to cry. Or
gaat mee.
everybody-
Ja,
Dat is the word contagioso in Spanish.
Okay,
thank you.
so where did it break off, you guys?
At the
Contagious.
last word, at contagioso, Denise.
Contagious.
Yeah.
Right? So something imaginary began to feel something weird, and he thought, wouldn't it be that something weird is contagious? So, something Arreglario loved his new and imaginative name. So both of them began to just go around the imaginary world. The sole presence of something Arreglario began to unfix all of the other somethings. And within a while, all of the other somethings were really uneasy. The membranes that divided ones from others began to realize that there was something new going on in this imaginary world. Soon, something imaginary, who was always open to something new,
Ja.
can you mute your microphone, Gabby,
Met die
please?
sluis.
Ja, we hebben allemaal wat niet.
Soon, something imaginary, who was always open to something new, gathered together all of the other somethings, and something Arreglario said. Today, 27th of July, I want to present to all of everybody that's part of this world, for the first time in the world of the somethings, something new has arrived. An electric wave went through everybody and every single one in particular. Every something immediately was aware of the fact that Arreglario was no longer in the imaginary. They realized that Arreglario wasn't something, just something more in the imaginary world. They realized that Arreglario was something different. Arreglario took the word and spoke and said, "Thank you very much, something imaginary. Thank you for inventing me in your world of the somethings, and for giving me this beautiful name. Here with us, I am something arreglario. This is how this something new presented himself. And
Ja, maar ik zou die roldeur niet open. Daarnaast zit de deur.
I know where it's going on. So.
Gabby, you mute your phone, your microphone, please.
Denise, you should be able to do it on her screen.
Yes, but it distracts me.
Oh, no, I'm saying you should just be able to mute it.
Ja.
Okay, so algo arreglario presented itself, and this is how it was, right? And something imaginary had just invented something arreglario. So, something imaginary said, to be someone, you first have to be something. And I am here because I am also something. And that's why I was able to come. It is only something common that can open the doors to something special. Something weird called me from his insides. From the inside of something common that lives in a world that's already invented. Something weird asked to speak. And he said, that is what's happening. That is what's happening to me. I have anguish thinking about the fact that everything is already invented. But I didn't know that my problem would provoke the apparition of a beautiful solution as this. Something arreglario responded. Something weird, dear. This world is already mature for a new invention. And even though I haven't opened my mouth yet, all of the somethings of this world woke up to an intuition. And then they asked, what is an intuition, Mr. Arreglario? Said something over there. It is something special that appears in the insides of something common, said something arreglario. So where does it come from? Said something over there. That is the gift that nothingness has in store for everybody, said something arreglario. What gift is that? What could nothingness gift us if it has nothing? Another something said, very surprised. Ha ha ha. It's been a while since I heard such a tender question, such a sweet question, or innocent. I am very happy then to tell you all of this. Something imaginary has created this world thanks to nothingness itself. But because no one ever told him, he doesn't know it yet. He just is. It just is, right? So no one ever told him that the imaginary world exists thanks to the nothingness, right? So it just is. This was said by something arreglario, and he was very excited to say this. And then something weird said, it is? What is it? And something imaginary said, self-referent. Okay, let's go back there because I think, 1 second. Okay. So, self-reference, right? So something imaginary is telling something weird. Something imaginary is self-referent, right? But he doesn't know he's self-referent because no one has ever told him that he is, right? So they were asking, okay, what it is? What is it that he is that no one has told him that he is? And then something imaginary says, self-referent. That something imaginary is self-referent. Self what? Autorreferé. Self what? Said something weird. Something Arreglario took a deep breath to calm himself down, lower the levels of his audience, and said, the nothingness and only the nothingness can inspire real self-reference. But because nothingness doesn't speak, no one listens. It just acts in your insides, pushing you always to new things, amplifying your space. But in order for it to do that, first, it needs you to be something. Then, nothingness is in charge to transform you into someone, and then you yourself choose who to be. The whole audience became mute. Something imaginary was having a tear, was shedding a tear, and had a knot in its throat. At last it knew what it was that was providing it with all of its happiness. And it was never reclaiming any acknowledgement for its participation. So they were realizing what was the source of all their happiness, and that source never wants an acknowledgement for its participation. Something Arreglario continued speaking. The nothingness doesn't need to express itself, because it already does that through everything. So all the somethings, all of us somethings are connected directly to her, and that is why the special ones, we never cease to be common. We never stop being common. Because we know that that is the bridge, the most wonderful bridge that connects all the worlds, the most common aspect. Up until this moment, all the somethings wanted to know more and more. Arreglario noticed that the electrical charge was every time it was getting greater and greater, and the maturity needed wasn't there yet to give the next step, to take the next step. So he said goodbye to all the somethings until the next day, for a new day to be able to continue. The next morning, imaginary world was completely weird by then. Something imaginary began to be a little bit concerned because he was noticing how everything kind of fell out of his hands, and for an instant, he doubted his new invention. And he felt insecure for the very first time in his life. And that electricity had transformed into a tension that he was having a really hard time to sustain. But something Arreglario woke up very happy because he had so many challenges on that day and he wasn't willing to lose one more minute. All the somethings talked among themselves and asked themselves, what is it that is going on? So it wasn't necessary to ask for all the somethings to come, because all the somethings had something weird in common. Everybody was tense, but they were very, very aware also of the things that Arreglario was going to say. It wasn't like before when something new happened. now the uncertainty the dosages of uncertainty were a lot higher. So something Arreglario looked at all of the somethings and asked permission to something imaginary to begin. And he said, now it is you, it's all of you that need a new name. A name that helps you use and capitalize all that excess of electricity that you're having. I'm going to give you that name first so that you can sense and feel if you like it. And all the some things were agreed. Okay, so something Arreglario continued. Everything that is invented, when it reaches a certain level of maturity, transforms into... Oh, please, something Arreglario, tell us right now, please, said something impatient. Arreglario took the word and said, everything that has been invented, when it reaches a level of maturity, is transformed into something gravitational. Suddenly, there was like a sudden hit, as if something very heavy had fallen upon everybody. All the somethings became very heavy, except something imaginary and something Arreglario. Congratulations to all the gravitational somethings. Now you are more important than us. And everybody started to applaud. Everybody was very happy. The one that wasn't very happy was something imaginary. That for the first time he noticed how his world had changed so much. So something Arreglario, after all the, congratulations and applauses, became very serious and said, I'm sorry. But first, it was important for me to Okay, but first I need to be in charge of providing you the status that you're gonna need to receive all the news that come from outside of your imagination. So, as you know, this imaginary world only allows you to live inside your own limits. But when one single something inside an imaginary world awakens, this is what happens. And it's very contagious, and it is like quickly contagious, and it provokes a current that it is not possible to decelerate. Imagination is a frontier that allows every something that is particular to develop itself. Nothingness is never bothered before time. We don't bother nothingness before it's time, right? So imagination is a frontier that allows every something that is particular to develop itself. And now what's going to happen to us? Said something gravitationally weird. Now, each one will be someone different. Now each one will be someone different. You will take your own route, your own way, and you will be able to choose how much you want to be away from this imaginary world. Something gravitationally weird was the first one to say, I want to go as far away as possible. Immediately, he began to feel more and more important, and consequently more and more heavy. Something Arreglario continued explaining. Something gravitationally weird is creating a new dimension of reality. And now he will be able to choose the gravity that he feels more comfortable in, the level of gravity. That is the importance of something gravitational. His weight will take him to the real world, and there he's gonna find other gravitational somethings. And he will have more experiences that will provoke in him a variety of new sensations. And what's going to happen with this world, said someone over there. Something of him will always be here. Something imaginary will always be very happy to invent something original. It's going to be a matter of who he is now, how he wants to use this new something, and how to invent new languages in other worlds that are different than this. I am in charge now with the translation of these languages, right? Okay, so the translation of the languages of the different worlds, because every world is rich in something different. So something imaginary is going to be creating new languages, and something arreglario is going to be translating these languages, right? Because every world is rich in something different. And each time we visit one of these worlds, its essence is always with us when we reach another one. That essence comes with us when we reach another world, and that at any given moment, it becomes important when a gravitational something needs it, right? So there is always something accompanying us, and when a gravitational something needs it, it's going to become important. It's going to become expressed, so to say. That's so nice. There is so much more outside of what I have dreamt about. But will we be alone in the real world? Yes. Your importance will grow inside yourself as something in the real world. But you're going to be able to connect with this world with something new you're going to have over there, which is called imagination. And of course, that in the real world is not as important. It is just important in your inside, precisely where all of the important stuff began. And that's the way it was. That's the way it was, the way something arreglario, something gravitational, and something imaginary continue until today, fixing levels, adding levels to the sheet of space-time. And that's how it happened. I'm going to say that again. And that's how it happened, how something arreglario, something gravitational, and something imaginary continue until today, adding new levels to the sheet of space-time. Something in your interior will always open these doors when you decide, when you make the decision. So instead of saying end, she wrote beginning. The end, instead of saying the end, she wrote beginning. Invented by nobody, created by somebody, and written by Alejandra Casado. Yeah.
Thank you.
Never translated that. But I should do it in text so you guys can have more, read it again, and because every time I've read it sometimes, and every time I go over it, I find new things, right? So I'm gonna translate it in via text for you guys so you guys can have it. See, the
Thank
best way
you.
to do it because it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. You guys have any notes on that? No?
Very interesting story.
Okay. So let's get to so there we have the base of that concept of arreglario, right? So Nienke's first question was arreglario and consuming an improvement. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
In the same context was like, oh, okay, with the story of Arreglario and with then comes an improvement, and then every time you're gonna consume an improvement. And I was like, okay, consuming an improvement, for me, it was difficult to understand what she was saying. So I don't have a really question, but more like, okay, what does she mean with that? Yeah.
Well, okay, if we're talking about arreglario, we're talking about something that is going to fix something. But in order for us to have something to fix, then we have to have a very well documentation of the faults, right? At different levels. So for example, the technical documentation of the San Andreas Fault in California, which was in 1906, which was 6 years after the last secular year, which told us that one of the main faults in the solar code had to do with these external influences not caring very much about the entorno. So the San Andreas fault has to do with the feminine principle of reception, right? And if whatever is issuing a code is not taking into consideration the entorno, it's probably going to break it. So that is like an example of documenting a fault, right? Now, if we're going to fix something like that, we're going to need resources that we cannot fix something in one dimension from the same dimension. Like the solution to something in one dimension comes from another dimension, right? So that is when she talks about arreglario, and then if she's talking about consuming an improvement, she was probably talking about constructing the improvement. How do we construct an improvement? First, we have to document the faults, and then we have to find or build the resources needed to fix whatever is broken. And then after that, we're going to be consuming that improvement, right? And who's going to be consuming that improvement? Probably the last link. We're also the last links, right? But we are working on our consciousness at other levels too. So we're going to be probably working on improvements, and then we're going to be consuming those improvements according to however that codification executes in our particular lives, right? But we're also going to see that at a global level.
Okay, so when you're consuming it, when you've learned something and then you use it in real life, then you're consuming it.
Yeah, but remember that the consumption of the improvement will always have to do because something else constructed that improvement in a previous dimension, right? So if I'm consuming an improvement, there was either an improvement in the Solar Native code that allows me to consume that improvement, or me with a license to work with the Solar Native code to kind of co-build that improvement.
Yeah. Okay.
Here. But if I don't have any solar consciousness, then I'm just going to be consuming it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
which
you.
is good, right? Like if the solar native code improves, then we have better possibilities for everything inside the container, which is good, right? Except that if there's no solar consciousness, then they're gonna think it's magic. They're not gonna realize where those improvements they're consuming are coming from. Or they're gonna allude it to their gods, or they're gonna, you know, whatever interpretation in the licenses they have, they're going to have their interpretations of those improvements. Okay, her explanation about the memory of the past and the outbalancing of that. She said that counterbalancing that would be with the re-axis. Was that it? What she was talking about? I think she said that the past is not going to be as important now because the credit from RO shifts to RI.
Yeah.
Right? So before, because the credit was in RO, it is as if everything was given and everything was so quick because we just wanted to consume because all the experiences were built for us to consume, right? That is credit in RO, and because of that, the past was really important because it provided a sort of anchor and stability.
Yeah,
for
that
us
part
to-
is not clear for me. That why
Mhm.
in the role, yeah, she makes connection that in there the past is more important than in the re. And in one way I understand it, but I cannot really explain it. Yeah. Of course, in the re, the past
Yeah.
is really totally different, but in the role, yeah. And
In the RI,
because
there
of the-
is no past or future.
no, yeah. And because of the shift, that importance of the past that we are used to experience in the context, that important will be balancing out or something, or because of this shift to the re.
The thing is that the anchor cannot be in the past anymore. It has to be
Yeah.
in the RI
yeah,
axis.
yeah.
Like in other levels of the re-axis, because we know that the re-axis has many different levels, right? And it interconnects all of those levels. And because the credit is in the RI, which means the credit is in our own particular connection and our own particular responsibility of our own existence, right? We're going to have to be creating whatever we're going to be consuming. So credit in the RI means improving our connectivity with the source, improving our connectivity with our entorno, our solar context, the solar system context, and our galactic context, all of those things, improving our connection in those instances so that we can get better at managing our own gravitational existence. That is more RI. If we're talking about RO, it's like linear. It's like it was part of the credit from the past where we only had to consume programs that were prefabricated, right? And whatever we were able to absorb or understand about the context with the maturity of the solar consciousness at the time. But since the solar consciousness is going through all of these changes, it is now that all those things that the sun is going through now, that is the future, right, of that other past. And since the decibels or the voltage of that future and the quality of that future is greater than the past, then it's going to transform the past and it's going to improve our present. I know that sounds a little, but the thing is that past and future are the least important things right now. It's always like the most important thing is in the present, and past and future should only be assisting us in improving our present, but we shouldn't be anchored to the past. She has been talking a lot about this, like when she has explained conocimiento, for example, right? That we relate conocimiento to something in the past, and when actually conocimiento is something that's alive, and we should be nourishing that. And it has to do with the cono, with the area of ourselves that receives all these novelties. And then the cimiento, which is re-axis, like the documentation in our re-axis that receives all of that. And that C note in the musical notes diagram, the C, that is like the director of the orchestra, right? It has to deal with all of these signals and making sure that all the new stuff doesn't break the foundation, and making sure that the foundation doesn't is not an obstacle for the cone receiving new stuff, right? So it is like, and then we have the codifier, we have the interpreter, right? The interpreter, so that we just don't fall into the prefabricated programs and interpretations that we are accustomed to, right? If our NO is asleep or it's new, we're not using it, then we're just going to be living based on prefabricated stuff, prefabricated code, prefabricated programs, pre-stated interpretations, stereotypes, right? And that's fine. If there is a particularity that is here with a contract of experience, that is fine. If that appetite of something different is not on for a particularity, then they're never going to pick up a signal of, a different kind of evolution. Then they're just going to, go through their gravitational document and continue on their way. But here, following this development, we are realizing that there are other opportunities than just having a nice experience, right? Or good or bad experience. There's like more opportunities than just that. And those opportunities have to do with evolution and creating consciousness at different levels simultaneously, right? And not allowing someone else to write our code for us and taking responsibility for creating that code. And also remember that the big or small area of reaches or your scope, it doesn't matter how big or small it is. The important thing is that we learn to use it as best as we can, because it's amplifiable. Remember, she used to talk a lot about limitations and scopes. And I think in society, there's a great confusion, because there's this slogan with the sky is the future and the sky is the limit, sorry. The sky is the limit, and you can be whoever you want, you can do whatever you want, there are no limits. And people tend to operate on their limits instead of operating inside their scopes. Being aware of your limits, of course. The thing is that if you get really good at whatever's within your scope, it is very likely that year after year, your scope is going to be amplified or just adjusted to make you more comfortable in your gravitational experience, right? So all of these things have to do with that shift in the credit from the source for experience, right? The credit in the past was to create content, to bring inside the container creators of content, but now we are in a different stage. So the credit for certain things, it's like, okay, it's not gonna run anymore. So yeah, we don't know how this is gonna look like in the plane. We're not predicting anything. This is just code reading, and we'll see how that unfolds. You know that the California fires are going on, I think, from yesterday. Such a sad situation. But a lot of houses from celebrities are being burned. And something Alice said was, it's very symbolic that Hollywood is burning, because it is where stars are projected, but these are stars that have no kind of solar consciousness. So, it is very symbolic that this is happening, right? And California is always a very, I would say, unstable, especially because of the San Andreas fault, right? Everybody's always like worried about that, and also the fires. So,
It's
yeah.
it's in Los Angeles, which we abbreviate as LA in the law.
The interpreter. See, we could probably take a license for reading this and say that they are all just running on interpretations, and no one's paying attention to the interpreter. And they can't, because if you don't have a space-temporal formation, and there is no usage of the NO cardinality, then there is no way that you're going to be able to use your interpreter, right? So you will be doomed to just use interpretations that are already made, right? So yeah, that is a very symbolic thing to begin the apparatus with, which I'm very happy about, because that whole celebrity worship culture enrages me. I think it's so sad to see like a lot of the young people, and even my age, and they're just, the whole culture is around celebrities and what they do and what they don't do. And it's just so sad to see so much potential wasted, and like the attention, the value of our attention, where it's going to other people's lives. Like, who cares what they do? It doesn't matter what they do right now, So yeah, I am happy. I am happy about that, actually, that the whole, not of course that people are suffering, not that part, but the part of the whole celebrity culture breakage. And I have seen it happen since last year. It's been happening. So yeah, we'll see how else that unfolds with the whole Puff Daddy situation as well. We'll see how much of it is able to become transparent, because there's a lot of powerful people there, powerful. And with this shift, we'll see where we're going to see who actually holds the real power, which is the people. But if the people are distracted and they're giving their attention, which is the most precious thing, to things that are not important, well, we're going to have to see how it unfolds. So yeah, the question, the note you had, Yenke, was explanation about the memory of the past and the balancing of that. Yeah, I don't think we touched that very much, did we? The memory of the past. The thing is that the memories of the things that have happened in the past, they have to do with a bad quality in the Solar Native Code, right? And now the Solar Native Code is gaining a lot of quality. So imagine if the solar consciousness is evolving, and it's gonna look at its past, it's gonna be like, oh, no, that's not good. No, that, like, the solar consciousness is using that past, but in a very different way, right? But the thing is that when Ale talks about this, she's talking at the level of the solar consciousness. And then for us to be able to understand that more locally, it's going to be hard. So let's just keep an eye there, keep a focus there, and continue to work on our concept in that area. Because for me, it's still blurry. So we can continue to maintain our focus once Ale talks about that again. Okay? All
Yes,
right.
because I was also a little bit confused, because she is giving more attention also to the memory and how to use it, and that it is more important, but only, I think, a different way, too much. more focus on the past, but we can use our memory, but in another way or something.
There is the concept error. You are connecting memory with past.
Yeah, yeah.
So the space of memory, remember there was a red program where
Yes,
she
yes. No,
explained that.
what I said in this, when she made these last sentences, she was talking about the memory connection with the air, and in other ways she did it not with the past, but also with. So I know the difference, but in this way she was only talking about memory of the past, I think.
Oh, specifically. Mm.
I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what comes to mind right now is to focus more on the creation of space in the memory, creating space in the memory,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That is like the focus. We should focus more on there, and then after we create that space, then consume that memory, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, the past is gonna have its own memory and its own container.
Yeah.
And it's always gonna happen like at different levels too. So I think it's gonna be up to us the way we like how we connect to the past and how we capitalize the past. Because there's gonna be a lot of people that their identities are very much anchored in the past, that they're not gonna be able to remove their anchor from there, right? Because it would mean that they would stop being themselves, right? Because if you have to anchor in your own re-axis, that is like a place where you're no one. So you have to anchor at a different place. You can't anchor in a past, in a human past, for example, right? That is too narrow for the moments we are moving towards, because the moments we're moving towards have to do with our capitalization of our mystical era, like holistic symbolic era, because we know that the symbolic aspect is useful for the last link, but we can't apply that for everything. And just how we use that, and creating an identity that is impersonal, right? That is outside of the place where we are humans. So if we have that, like if we work on that impersonal identity, then it's going to be harder for us to work with the past, because it's not going to be frozen. It's going to be, dynamic. We're going to be able to use it more easily, right? Than if it's crystallized, or if we're anchored on it. Imagine, how are you going to use a chair if you're sitting on it? You have to get off the chair, right? So that's kind of how it goes. Or get off the boat and get in the water and fix the boat, something like that. So it doesn't feel very great. But yeah, so creation of memory is one thing, consumption of memory, and then the unfolding of time, which is past, present, future. The present using the past and the future to improve, right? And the re-axis balancing everything out. So everything, like the focus should always be in the re-axis. And, not a cost, but like that whole celebrity culture is also looking outward, right? Looking at other people's lives and what they do, and never looking inward. So if if you're looking inside, you have no time to go and look or audit other people's life. It is just boring. Okay. Getting slower is important. The magnifying glass is more important than the guilt. So, you know the words culpa and lupa, right? Did you guys write it down so you could see? I'm going to write it down. Culpa and lupa. So lupa doesn't have the C, but the word lupa translates to magnifying glass, which we could, now that we're talking a lot about our attention, if we administrate our attention and then we slow down and we we turn that guilt or culpa, we turn it into a slowing down and observing with more detail what is going on and creating a new interpretation of what's going on instead of just running with whatever is pre-recorded. We're gonna find something new. We're gonna be creating new stuff all the time, right? Instead of just repeating the stuff that the guilt that the guilt turns on within our programs, right? So instead of just letting those programs run automatically, first thing we can do is just be aware of that fact. Be aware of the fact, oh, I think I am noticing an old program running automatically. So if I have my NO cardinality, I can take the needle off the disc, take it off, separate it, and stop the program from running. Why? Because I am in the SE note. I am the orchestra director. I am becoming aware that there's a program running, an automatic program running. So I take the needle off the disc and stop it and just observe, right? Or if I can't stop it, at least I can observe it's running. That is that makes like a whole lot of difference than if we just let it run. So it is like, it seems like a very small thing, but it's a lot because we are using our NO cardinality. And not a lot of people can say that. At least it's not brand new. I mean, we're not experts, but it's not brand new anymore. So getting slower, she said that that's going to be like something that's going to be main in this apparatus. The slowing down, either voluntarily or not. So I always suggest that we slow down voluntarily, right? If we notice that we are accelerating ourselves too much, or like if we can control ourselves, even like if we're really happy about something or excited about something, this is also something she said that I thought was interesting, that we're not going to have as many emotions to just, feel. There's going to be limits, more limits to everything, because the solar consciousness itself is more restricted. So it cannot provide something it doesn't have. Like the requirements or the conditions for the providing of the credit for gravitational existence, like the conditions have changed for the solar consciousness itself. So of course they're going to change for us, because we cannot exist as we are if we don't have credit for that, right? So it's going to affect us as well. So because we don't have as much credit in the raw, we're not going to be wanting to consume as much, right? But this is something not very conscious, and it's not very superficial either. It's like, these are things that are on deeper levels. Like if you search for these things, you're going to find them, but they're on deeper levels. You're not going to find them like in our psychology or in our society. We're not going to find them easily. We're not going to find them there. But we're going to see the slowing down. We're going to see the lack of credit for a lot of things that used to have a lot of credit, or we're going to see how things that used to work very well in the past are not going to be working that well anymore. Things like that, right? Hopefully it is not very drastic. Hopefully the change is not drastic. It's not catastrophic. Hopefully the shift is going to be elegant, soft, slow, because we don't want to disturb ourselves too much. Like hopefully the solar code and its quality is good enough for us not to enter into catastrophes, so that the change is gradual and elegant. So hopefully we find that. Okay, I'm gonna jump into Gaby's question. Can you explain what makes that culpa, the execution will be very quickly, and that quality very bad? Did she actually relate that with the culpa? I don't think she did. I mean, she was talking about the culpa. The thing with Ale is she's probably talking about the culpa, and then she thinks about something else and diverts a little bit, and it's not necessarily completely linked to each other. But let's separate. We just talked about culpa. Now we're gonna talk about good or bad quality, right? Oh, I know why. I know why she connected them. The slow and fast part, right? Culpa is something that runs automatically. Lupa is something that you have to stop and see. You have to stop, you have to slow down to notice more details. So she was saying that if the algorithm executes itself really quickly, then the quality of the experience is going to be very bad. But if the algorithm executes itself more slowly, which means magnifying glass, more detail, right? If we stop and look at the details of the process, then the quality of the experience is going to be better. Why? Because we're going to be like whatever we construct, we're going to consume, right? So if we're consuming really quickly, we're going to burn out our fuel really quickly. Right? And the outcome's not going to be very good because it is as if I give you $1,000 and you just go out and buy it and spend it in one day in fast food, and you buy everybody food and you burn it out. Or instead you use those $1,000 and you administrate them for one whole month. And I don't know, you invest and you make more money, and you see, it has to do with the administration of whatever I have constructed previously. So now, if we ourselves are creating that, if we are like in charge of generating what we're consuming, are we gonna wanna consume it as quickly? Of course not. We're gonna be wanting to be really like careful in how we consume, because it has been hard for me to construct what I'm consuming. It has been hard. I'm not consuming somebody else's resources. I'm consuming my own. And I know how hard it was for me to create them. So I'm not gonna wanna burn them out as quickly as if it was given. That is the difference between Ro and Ri. In Ro, things were given. Credit in Ro, things are given. So I wanna consume. In Ri, things are not given. You are given the instruments you need to construct what you're gonna consume. But things don't just come in a form where you can consume them. That's why a lot of people get bored with LGC because they're like, oh, this is not useful for me. Like, I can't use this. No, because it's not a fight. Like, it's not something consumable. Because it's creating consciousness at a level that doesn't directly like fall into our human experience. So people get bored with that. Is that good, Gabby, with your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, next question from Gabby. What happens when we turn into dissonance instead of resonance? Okay, so let me remember what she was saying about that. Resonance. Oh, I forgot. Can someone remind me? Because, of course, resonance has to do with appetite for evolution. This is my personal like interpretation of or this is how I would differentiate one from the other. The resonance part, like if you're resonating with this signal, it means that there's an appetite for evolution. If there's a dissonance, it means that there's an appetite for improving my experience. Right? So I am just looking for wherever I can find so that I can improve my experience. And that's it. That's all I care about. I don't care about the entorno. I don't care about the solar system. I don't care about the solar native code. Like all of those things, I don't care. I don't care about building consciousness at different levels. You see? That's how I would tell it apart. Dissonance. So dissonance is, and it's a lot of people listening to Ale and oh yeah, I remembered. Listening to Ale and wanting to conciliate everything that Ale says with a memory, with a personal memory. So if you are doing that, you're probably in dissonance. Now, if you are able to listen to Alejandra openly without making instantaneous interpretations and connections to your memories, if you're openly listening, then you're probably in resonance. So it has to do with like if anything Alejandra says and you instantly are like, oh yeah, I read that in the Bible. Yeah, I read that in the Bible that was going to happen. That's dissonance. Because this information is not coming from the past. It is a guide from the future. It's guiding the solar native consciousness, excuse me. It's guiding the solar consciousness from the future, not from the past, and especially not from the human interpretation of the past, which is even worse than the objective past. Like the memories, the objective memories that the entorno has of the past are not the same thing that the interpretations of those memories, the human interpretation of those memories. I mean, that could be anything, like anybody having an opinion about anything 2000 years ago and us thinking that it's knowledge, which is not very good. Now imagine you're listening to Ale and you are relating that to a book that was written 2000 years ago. That's dissonance. Yeah. So yeah, it had to do with the memory thing. We have to learn to listen to Ale openly. So she said, now you're gonna decide what you're gonna use this information for, because a lot of people use it for other stuff. You know, they're not using it for what it's supposed to be used, which is being an improvement part, like an improvement consciousness, a consciousness that provides improvement or helps provide construct improvement to the solar entorno, which is the purpose, right? Improve the solar code. Than just searching how I can take advantage of the others using a fancy language and making them think that I am better than them because I know these things and I feel really good about myself and, you know, getting ahead of everybody because I know something. All of that is dissonance. So, yeah, for me, it's really easy to tell those things apart. Yeah. Okay. Next one from Gabby. So do I understand it correct that stellar parasites only there because we do not occupy our own re-axis, and if we do move, do the move away automatically? Oh, no. I would say no, because okay, we think of a parasite as a structure, right? It has a structure. It is a molecular structure. And that structure has, it's a design, right? Like a virus. They are structures that are designed and they have a purpose. So what Alejandra has talked about parasites recently has to do with the fact that they are occupying areas in the solar code where the solar code itself wasn't able to give coverage to, right? So the solar code had a specific quality, but it wasn't great. So all the loopholes in that code were occupied by these stellar parasites, which are like, oh, I saw light and I came in. That is like the phrase that Ale uses. I saw light and I came in, right? There was a space there and I occupied it. The thing is that now all these like this review that the solar consciousness has done, and it's trying to repair all these loopholes or all these errors in its code, improve that quality at the level of the solar consciousness. It means better quality, right? In the solar code and the container that provides the experiences. But if we're talking about us as humans, what would that mean? That she explained that it has to do with our capacity to gravitate on our own without any help, right? Sorry, it makes sense to me, but it's hard for me to put it into words. ¿Para qué cito? ¿Para qué? It means for what? Para cito, right? ¿Para qué cito? ¿Para qué cito? For what do I use a 21 base to connect to the solar native code? For what? There I am going to be constructing the argument of my gravitational existence. For what do I gravitationally exist inside a solar context? Am I here because I just want to have a good experience? Or because I want to be somebody? Or whatever? Or am I here because I have an appetite for evolution? I have an appetite to learn about this entorno as much as I possibly can, in as many levels as I possibly can. And ¿para qué? For what? For what do I use a 21 base that is connected to the solar native code? For what? So if I'm creating that argument, then I'm not going to be needing parasites to do that work for me anymore. It's going to depend on our space-temporal maturity, how many parasites we have, or how many parasites we need, because they're not our enemies. We need them. Like they are sort of like amparo. Hold on. Let me see what that word is in English. I can't find it, but the thing is that in Spanish, in the law system in Spanish, maybe Gienke, you can help me find that resource in English. There is a recurso de amparo, which protect, like, if I feel like my human rights have been violated, I can issue a recurso de amparo and claim for my constitutional human rights. Amparo, it is like a protection, like a basic protection, native protection that everybody has, right? Amparo translates directly to protection or safety net or subsidy.
Asylum?
Not quite. Subsidy, subvention, like something like a I don't have a foot and I have a prosthesis. Something like that. Like it helps me, a support. They're not our enemies. They support our gravitational existence because we don't have arguments that are our own, right? We're talking about parasites. Now, if we are slowly, like year after year, day after day, working on our arguments for gravitational existence, we have that appetite, we are moving towards that, becoming more gravitational. If to evolve is to become more gravitational, but we have to do that on our own. We're not gonna, like, the parasites, the help of the parasites is gonna be there depending on our ignorance licenses. So if our ignorance licenses are shorter, then we're not gonna have as many help from the parasites because we're gonna have to do it on our own. It's like a support for gravitational existence. Yeah, I know. So like the thing is that we just shouldn't think of parasites as a bad thing. they can be our allies. Yeah. And they are going to be supplying, they're going to be substituting for things we lack in our consciousness.
What about like a symbiotic relationship, a symbiote?
That's what parasites are, no? They live off a host.
You live as a host, but I think the idea, the word symbiote, different than parasite, is that it's mutually beneficial.
Oh,
Parasite has a connotation of
yeah.
detriment.
Okay. So, that's interesting. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I mean, like, I guess, I don't know. That's an interesting question. It got me thinking. Symbiotic, I mean, but why would you need, like, if you don't need that anymore, and like, if those parasites originally like mean that these are consciousnesses that lost their own stars, I think we're too far behind to think about that, you know, to like consciously support another life form consciously and willingly. Like there would have to be a lot of construction of argument, a lot of a lot of space temporal concept. Like there's a lot missing there to arrive to something like that. Yeah.
But the nature of a parasite, at least, generally speaking, is that it's something coming to take. It's not a conscious thing, and you're looking to get rid of it.
I wouldn't say looking to get rid of it. I would say
Not-
build whatever the parasite is supporting or doing.
Yeah.
I can construct in
No, I'm referring to
in my own.
I'm referring to in the row, the day to day, commonly it's viewed as a negative, right? If there's, oh, you have a parasite, we need to remove it. And what we're reinterpreting it, right, to have a function. We're saying it has a functionality, but right, it's an indication of what still needs to be grown.
What we're lacking, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an indication of what we're lacking. Same thing as the same way as the solar native code had a bad quality and all these external influences came in. Same way. So if we are working on our subatomic scale consciousness, multi-level consciousness, awareness, and if we're working on the expansion of our re-axis, then we don't even have to think about the parasites. Like, we're going to be working on ourselves, and slowly they're not going to have room because we're going to be occupying all the vacant spaces we had in our board. So there's not going to be any room for them because all the codification from those empty spaces, it's going to be filled up. So there's not going to be that empty space for them to occupy anymore.
And we don't feed them anymore then.
Feed them. Okay,
They need something from us.
the concept of feeding them is more related to the anatomic.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're talking about like anatomically feeding them, like through food and like that, is that what you mean?
Yeah, but also they feed themselves with something from us. Maybe emotions, maybe
Our empty spaces.
Yeah.
Empty spaces in our codification.
Yeah. If we put them, they die. We don't feed them.
But if you don't have consciousness at a level where you're supposed to be constructing code, they're gonna be there. This is about consciousness. It's about conceptual construction. And if we have a conceptual base, a firm conceptual base, we have pretty good arguments for our gravitational existence. We are working within our scope. We are working to improve our personal codification. We are working we are interested in working with the entorno and the solar native code to improve its quality. Those empty spaces are not going to be vacant anymore. They're going to be filled up.
Yeah.
So but this is at the level of the solar consciousness, mainly.
Mhm.
We are helping out a little. And that's where I would call symbiotic, Jeff, the connection between humans and the solar consciousness. So yeah, because it is the solar consciousness hosting a species, which is the human species. And if the human species has an appetite to include the entorno that allows them to exist and not put their ego on top of their heads and understand that without this entorno, there is no human species. The human species will be able to work with the solar consciousness to improve the entorno. Now that's symbiotic.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, next question from Marjolaine. Okay, a physical experiment that includes a space antimatter ingredient. Physical experiment? I don't know. Do you have more context?
No, I wrote it's in the beginning.
Okay, I think I remember. Wait.
He's talking also about 45. Concept model which would be managed by our double 45 minus of doubled by 45 it's equal, and before she said LGC physical experience has a space antimatter ingredient, and this is important in 507. That's what she said.
Yeah. So I think it has to do with our reconnection to the antimatter, which is where everything that exists, that materially exists, like it's the kitchen of everything that materially exists. That's antimatter, right? Like that's where everything is codified. So LGC is creating a space inside matter, inside existence, to connect with that part, with antimatter, to connect with that part. So that's gonna, if we do it well, we're gonna be learning to create codification without having to die, right? Because in the past, this opportunity wasn't enabled, wasn't possible. Now, with the better quality of the code, that's going to be an opportunity, hopefully, for the species to be able to connect with the antimatter and fix whatever is not working very well. Why? Because we're going to have multi-dimensional consciousness. And if we are part of the construction of the mechanisms that make reality be, then we're going to know how to fix the faults, right? The same way as if we built a car from scratch, like we created everything, and then something starts to fail in the car, we're going to know exactly how to fix it. Something like that. So a connection with the antimatter while we're still alive without having to die. Something like that. That's arreglario. That's like another quality of arreglario. There's a part of us that's always in that, like, if there's enough maturity, right? We gravitate more. There's an appetite for more gravity. There's an appetite for other stuff, right? So that part inside ourselves that we all have, but for most of us, it's still asleep. For some of us, it's starting to awaken, and be like, oh, okay, there's this new opportunity. And each one of us is going to have to construct their connection with the opportunity, with the signal, or with the potential, right? Because one thing is to see the potential, another thing is to develop the potential. And we also have to learn to tell those two things apart. Observing the potential does not mean that we are doing it or have developed it. Yeah, and the thing with the 45 times 45, that one was a little bit hard for me as well. But it had to do with 45 times 45 means 2025, right? And she said, okay, it wouldn't be the same if we said 45 equals 45, because that would mean that there was a model, administration of a model, and another administration of a model, and the same level. But if we put the X, like the multiplication sign, then that takes like, if we put the X in the calculator, right? It's using all the 4 cardinalities, right? So that way, Alejandra relates 145 to the unfolded and the other 45 to the double. So it is not the same to administrate a model digitally than to administrate a model analogically, right? So then she goes on and talks about bimetallism and the silver function at the solar code level, which has to do with the connection between the double and the unfolded. The double is in direct connection with the structures, right? In direct connection with all the novelties, all the unprecedented stuff. That's the double. And the unfolded is over here experiencing everything. Now, connecting, like the quality of the connection between double and unfolded, that's going to be impacting directly in our experience, in our material experience as well, right? And then we have the connection of gold, which is 97. And that is like another level. That is like very structural. That is like where the updates come from, like ionosphere, right?
79, eh? 97.
Yeah, 7997. The
Oh,
function.
79.
Yeah, the function, of course, it's like the atomic number of gold is 79, but the function is always 7997 because we have there's always a dynamism there. If we read it from the left, it has to do, it means one thing. If we read it from the right, it means another thing. If we read it from the left, it is the value of the improvement, right? 79. But if we read it from the right, it is the improvement of the value or the increment of the value or we can give it many dynamic interpretations to that. But basically, it has to do with like the connection with the structures, right? And then silver has to do with the connection with the double to the unfolded. So if all of these things are fixed and they start working properly, then our connection, like the flow of signals, is going to be working better. And that's where we come in with our C note in the musical notes, the orchestra director. How are we going to organize those signals? We're receiving a really cool, unprecedented signal, and then we anchor it to some whatever stuff they're saying socially that's pre-programmed from 500 years ago. We're gonna ruin it. We're gonna miss the opportunity, right? So the quality of our C is gonna depend. It's very important because it has to do with the flow of signals, right? Like how we manage that. So 45 times 45, administration of the digital aspect, administration of the analogic aspect. Analogic has to do with process. Digital has to do with results. And all of those things are fine, but we shouldn't be mixing. Like if we over here analogically are obsessed with the results, we're not going to be having a really good time because if the code is fixed and everything is in its rightful place, then I should be able to separate dimensions pretty well and should be able to be like, okay, this has to do with the process and I have to come and live in the process. And then the double lives in the result, and that's fine. And it's going to support me as better as it can if I leave it where it's supposed to be. in the digital aspect, and it's fine. That's why it's not the same to administrate a digital aspect than to administrate an analogic aspect. And then we have the X, which is 25 in the alphabet also, right? And X is also related to that linear aspect. So recreation of that X-axis, what does that mean? We're all gonna have to be recreating that constantly. That's like the function of 2025. And as we know, we look at the LGC calendar every year, even though it passes, it continues to fulfill a function in the solar code, right? So that's gonna be the function of 2025, recreation of the X-axis. So that's cool, right? But what do we need to recreate the X-axis? We need a lot of re. If not, we're gonna have to be using resources that are not our own. And that's fine also. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as we're aware and be like, okay, I am missing that. For now, I am using this resource that is not my own. Okay, but I'm aware, right? And I want to construct something that is my own so that I don't have to be using resources that are not my own. Yeah. So very significant for Ale to have this breakup with her partner, especially like at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. Because she explained, like explicitly explained how she was using her partner's negative structure base. So she had to unlink her mind from Dario's foundation. And wow, I was like, wow, I have to see like in every relationship, right? And not just like partners, but like mothers, you know, kids, whatever, friends, it could be anything, any kind of relationship. And you know, how we interact with each other and how much of our gravitational existence, how much of that is based on our own resources and how much we are standing on others' resources, for example. So if I'm aware of that, then I can begin the construction of making those resources my own. I can do that too. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody, we all come from that. So, yeah. So, one more question from Marjolaine.
I think you answer all the questions now.
Oh yeah? Okay, good.
I have a look. I check.
All right, let me know if you want me to answer something new. Clonation is not possible anymore from Nienke. Yeah, she said that it is not that it's not going to be possible at the human level. It's not going to be allowed anymore structurally. And I already had an episode, like a strong episode regarding that, and I was like, wow, that was quick. That was really quick and very evident in the cloning part. So yeah, I think that's really good. I mean, it would be really boring if we were all the same, right? Like that's why we like this world, because there's so much diversity and there's so many different things. And especially now, like if everything goes well, especially now, if the requirement is that the contents need to be a little bit aware of their surroundings, then, you know, I think we're gonna get along better. Imagine if we got along. Everybody has dreamt about that, I think, in the past, and we've been dreaming about getting along. Yeah?
About the 6 questions, it's about that she is using the word comfort zone, but she's not, it's not an explanation of our comfort zone. So what does she mean with comfort zone?
Comfort zone. What was she talking about? You remember?
Yes.
Because she said she's not talking about psychological comfort zone.
Everybody has to register their own comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And then she explained the processor, the equilibrium
Oh, yeah.
of processor.
Equilibrium.
Yes.
Equilibrium of the processor. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I remember now. It has to do with where I feel more comfortable. And it is related to what we were saying earlier about if we are resonating with the signal or dissonating with the signal. Right? If I feel more comfortable listening to Ale and then connecting that to a memory of mine, that's my comfort zone. That is like the equilibrium. If the equilibrium of my processor feels good when I do that, then it's fine. Right? But if the equilibrium of my in my case, I cannot do that. Like it makes me anxious if I see somebody like in the group, in the 7-Eleven group, for example, Alice says something that is like completely new and they're like, oh yeah, and they relate it to something social. It makes me want to explode a little bit. That destabilizes my processor. So that's how I notice. That destabilizes me. So I have to get a grip and breathe. Okay. But if your processor feels comfortable doing that, that is your comfort zone. You see?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So
And
whatever your processor feels comfortable doing.
it's more clear now. Yeah.
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 And that's what we do on the Rings of Fire. That is what we do. We work with the processor. So if I am noticing certain faults in my process, that's the moment to fix them, or that's the moment to notify myself about them, figure them out, improve the quality of my processing of signals, all of that, right? That's what the Ring of Fire is for. So yeah, you guys, that's all the time we have. It took us a little bit, like less than an hour to go through the story. Yeah, I'm gonna try to translate that for you guys because that online translation was a little bit bumpy. But I do hope that it helped, and we fulfilled our purpose for the first meeting of the year, which was to go over the story. So yeah, I think it went really great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Hi,
Thank you
Geert.
very
Hey,
much.
we barely listened to your voice. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Okay, good to see you.
Thank you.
Glad to see everybody. And yeah, we'll be seeing each other in lab 2. Let me know if you have any other questions. We can work through them in the group.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Denise.
you.
Okay, you
Thank
guys.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.